sorry.
All right. Okay.
We are on Eruvin 92, Tzadik Beis. So we quoted before that both Shmuel and Rav Yochanan said the halacha is like Rav Shimon. Bein she'irvu, bein shelo irvu. That means even if they made an eruv in the chutzner with the batim, and the people can carry their stuff from their bais to the chutzner, that doesn't prevent movement of items from the chutzner to a gag and from a gag to a karfeh. So the Gemara is going to question that. Miyam Rav Yochanan hachi? Did Rav Yochanan really say this? V'ha'am Rav Yochanan halacha kistam mishnah. So this is a very common phrase throughout Shas, where we know that Rabbi Yochanan has said halacha is like a stam mishnah, and the Gemara is not going to quote a stam mishnah. A stam mishnah is a mishnah that has no name. That's an anonymous mishnah without a name. Utna koisel shebein shtei chatzeros. Two chatzeros, they don't have a door, so there's two separate chatzeros. There's a wall in between them, and the wall is gvoa asor v'roichem arba, 10 high and 4 wide. In essence, the wall is its own rishus hayachid. Anything that's 10 high and 4 wide is rishus hayachid. So number one, Marvin Shnai Marvin Echad. So each chotzer has to make his own eruv. You can't make a joint eruv because there's no connecting window or door that connects the two chatzeros. However, Hayu Barosho Peros, if on top of that wall was fruit, Elu Oilin Mikan V'Oichlin, Ve'elu Oilin Mikan V'Oichlin. So each can go up to the top of the wall. There's fruit up there. They basically share the airspace of that wall. Uvavachlo Yeridu Lamata. However, they cannot take the fruit down from the wall to their chotzer needed there. Now, my lamata. Oh, excuse me. Uvavachlo Yeridu Lamata, and that's the kasha. Alma says Rashi. Asur lahotzi mechotzer lechaverta. Because remember, Rav Yochanan says you can go from chotzer to chotzer. Now, what's the problem then? So if you're going to tell me that if they made an eruv, each chotzer made their own individual eruv, you're going to tell me it's osir then. So then, this Mishnah could be explained in a case where the chotzer is made an eruv. But if Rav Yochanan holds that you're allowed to go from chotzer to chotzer, whether they made an eruv, whether they didn't make an eruv, so what is this brisa talking about? So the Gemara answers, "My lamata labati." Doesn't mean enachanami. This brisa means that they could go down from the wall and eat it in their individual chotzer because of the rule that Rav Yochanan holds that you can go from chotzer to chotzer. They just can't bring it into their houses. That they can't eat it in the karka of the chotzer, or even on the top of the wall, which again seems to suggest that they're not talking about a case of ben she'ir ben shelo irvu. But Rabbi didn't learn the baraisa the way Rav Chia is teaching it. Rav Chia minaylo, where did Rav Chia get it? So the baraisa that Rav Chia quotes is not accepted by the Gemara, and we end up with an acceptable answer for Rabbi Yochanan to explain this baraisa. Itma. You have two chatzeros, and there's a ruin, right? A house that's fallen apart in between the two chatzeros. Achas irva. One of the chatzeros in their bati made a name. The achas lo irva. Another chatzer in the bati didn't make a name, so those people cannot carry from their houses into the chatzer because there's no irva. So we give the use of the churva to the people of the chotzer that they did not make an eruv, because that now we understand. Because since they didn't make an eruv, they can't move things from their house to the chotzer, so there's no problem if they use the churva. Aval she'ir v'lo. But you cannot give the use of the churva to the chotzer that made an eruv, because dilma also lafuke mani the batim lachurva. Since they have the right to move things from their bias to the chotzer because they made an eruv, we're concerned if you give them the use of the churva, that they're going to move things from, it's only things that start in the chutzner that you can go from chutzner to chutzner. But not, so it's a gzeira for the people who made it. But this goes against the concept that we've been learning, bein she'irvu, bein shelo irvu. Remember, we explained, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shmuel explains the sheet of Rabbi Shimon, that you can go from chutzner to chutzner and chutzner to Gag and Gag to Churva and all these places, bein she'irvu, bein shelo irvu. And the Chiyah Barav Amar Atla she'irva, you know what? Chiyah says you give the Churva use to the chutzner that made an Eruv. However, shtein asuros. However, that's going to create a situation where both of them can't use the churva because they both have usage of it without an eruv together. And the imtomer shtein mutaros, because if you're going to tell me that both have, it's mutar to go to the churva. So mitnei ma ein noisen chotzer shlo irva l'chotzer she'irva. So why don't they give use of the chotzer that of the people who did not make an eruv to the chotzer that did make an eruv? So there's a reason. Hasum kiva the mintri mani debatim b'chotzer asilafuke. A chotzer has walls, so even if you're going to move kalim from your house into the chotzer, it's still protected there. But hacha by a churva, kiva the loy mintri mani the chotzer b'churva lo asilafuke. You don't have to worry about making a gzeira. People by themselves are not going to bring their kalim into the churva because the churva is like a ruin. It's open to the public. And people are going to think that their kalim are not watched well enough there. So we don't have to make a gzeira that Dilma Asi Lafuke because nobody's going to bring their stuff into the churva. However, Ikedi Amri, other people learn that that means you give the use of the churva to both chatzeros, both to the one that made an eruv, both the ones that did not make an eruv, and they can use the churva. But maybe you'll tell me they're also because they're going to transfer things from chotzer that made an eruv to the other one. So it says no. Since people are going to move their kalim from their house into a chotzer because they know it's protected there, Chacham didn't allow people to move that there if you didn't have an eruv. Because people do asi lafuki, but they're not worried about the case of the churva because no, your kalim are not watched there. Mishnah. Gag gadol samach lekot. You have a big roof that opens up to a smaller roof. So the Rashi says, Hagadol mutar lachnis lo klei habayis shalomata. You can carry from the roof to the house below, and from the house below to the roof. However, and the fact that the big roof is open up to the small roof doesn't answer it. Here comes the key line. The dimension of the small roof is less than 10 amas. So therefore, the connection between the small roof and the big roof is less than 10 amas. So we view it as an opening. The whole small roof is considered like just an opening. The big wall basically has 4 walls and a pesach less than 10 amas. So it's a perfectly good rishus. And therefore, if it's owned by the same person, a person can transfer things from his roof to his house and from his house to his roof. Like the Rashi says, we're talking about the opening between the small roof and the big roof is less than 10. Aval, says Rashi, the small roof, you cannot take from the small roof to its house below or from the house below to the small roof. The bnei gadol osri alei. The fact that the cotton is open up to the gadol asers it. The nifritz lo b'milua. The divrei hakoli that feel Rav Meir lo amar gagin u'shusachas elakim u'shasum b'soichon. Right? Rav Meir who allows you to go from gag to gag. That's only from a kli that starts in the gag. Aval kelim shushasu b'batim lo. But if it started off in the bias of the cotton You can't move from Gag to Gag. Lo domi the chotzer ketana shenifetz l'gdol l'klama chatzer just achasein. But in klei batim doesn't work. So that's why the Mishnah says Gag godel samach l'kotna godel mutiv akotna asur. That's a Gag. Then the Mishnah says chotzer gdol shenifetz l'ktana. You have a big chotzer that opens up to a little chotzer. Gdol muteres uktana asura. Gdol muteres lahotzik klei batim shaba im ir v'la'atzma. That means if the big chotzer made an air with the batim in there, of course, those batim can transfer their kelim in there. And the fact that it opens up to this other small roof doesn't answer. Again, it becomes tough to the gadol. It's not like its own independent rishus, since it's not involved in the area with aser, because it's nifrotz b'milua. It's completely open. It's not considered completely open. It's considered just like a Pesach. Now, the Gemara wants to why did you have to tell me the din both by Gag and by Chotzer? L'chora, that should be the same thing. So, l'Rav Ktani Gag domi l'Chotzer. For Rav, he wants to explain because the Gag is similar to a Chotzer. Ma Chotzer min mechitzasa, just like a Chotzer has walls that rise from the ground, you can clearly see the walls. Av Gag nami minkra mechitzasa. Rashi. Hinami de sharina lebe mechitzos tachtonos. Remember we said that we don't see any walls on the roof, but there are walls in the house that are covered by the roof, and we have a concept mishum gud asik. Miu mechitzos nikoros bina shlei Gag boilei chutzalam. Right? It has to be. He recognizes good asik. If it was not recognizable that there are walls at all, we wouldn't say good asik. And the godel nami asir, and then the godel would be asir. And Rashi points out to us, they were flat. They were not angled. That's why the walls are minker. They're recognizable because you see the end of the building. There's a wall there, so that's why you can extend those walls up to serve as walls that surround the roof. The Shmuel Gag domi the Chotzer. Shmuel learns the opposite, that the Gag is similar to the Chotzer. Ma Chotzer the Kodarsi l'Rabim. Chotzer people walk through. Av Gag nami the Kodarsi l'Rabim. We're talking about a roof that people walk through, and we said if people walk through it, so the wall in between the godel and the cotton is not really a wall, because people trampling through, walking through, sort of mevatels that wall. That's why it leads. So the big roof has four walls because the opening by the small roof going into the roof, the bigger roof is less than 10 amos. It's just a Pesach, and it's got side walls on that side, giving it fourth wall. The small roof doesn't have a fourth wall, and since you can't use good asik because darsi l'rabim, you're not allowed to carry on the small wall. Yosef, Rabbi Rav Zein, Rabbi Rav Chanav, Yosef Abai Gavayim. Abai was sitting with them. Yosef coming. That Shema bin Avi Masnisan. Diurik Dola Betana. The people who live in the gadol can make use of the cotton. It's because it's a Pesach to it. But the Ein Diurik Tana B'Gdola. But the people who dwell, their house opens up into the small chotzer or roof, cannot use the Gdola. And we're going to see how far this works. Ketzah. Gifanim Bagdola, if you have grapes, vines, growing in the large one, Asur Lizros Aktana. The Ktana is considered part of the gadol. Because remember, we said the Ktana is like a Pesach there. And therefore, if you try to plant chita, you make kloim. And the imzara zran asurin. If you did it, they're asur klaya keret. But the gefanim are mutarim, because the diurik tana are not considered as if they're in the gedola. Now, gefanim mutar. Now, gefanim biktana. But if the grape vines are in the small one, mutal Yisroes Agdola, because it's a separation. It's not viewed if the Kefanim are in the Ketana, it's not viewed that the Kefanim are in the Gedola. And therefore there's no Isser if you plant wheat in the big one. Similarly, Isha Bagdola Beget Biktana. So if a husband wants to divorce his wife, and his wife is in a chutzner, and the chutzner belongs to her, so you don't have to hand the get to her hand. If you put it in the chutzner, she's divorced. So again, if the woman is standing in the Gedola, and you place the get in the Ketana, mitgareshes, because the Ketana is part of the Gedola. But Isha Biktana Beget Bigdola, if you put the Isha in the Ketana and you put the get in the Gedola, ain't a miskareshes. Then she's not miskareshes. Because it's viewed separately. Similarly, Tzibur B'Gdola, you have a minion in the Gdola, Shnech Tzibur B'Ktana. So the Ketana is considered tofel to the Gdola. Yoitzi Yidei Chavosum. But Tzibur B'Ktana B'Shnech Tzibur Gdola, the Shliach Tzibur is separate from the Tzibur. Yoitzi Yidei Chavosum. Tisha B'Gdola V'Yachid B'Ktana. You have 9 men and 1 in the Ketana. Mitztarfin. They're mitztarf to the minion. But Tisha B'Ktana B'Achaz B'Gdola, they're mitztarfin. And they're not mitztarf. Soya B'Gdola, right? If there's excrement in the Gdola, then you cannot read also Likros Krishma B'Ktana because it's connected. Soya B'Ktana, Mutar Likros Krishma B'Gdola. So we see multiple examples. It's viewed as if there's a wall. If you put something in the Ketana, it's viewed as if there's a wall dividing the Ketana from the Gdola. Armelu Abaya, Kain Matzino Mechitza Le'Isser. If based on what you said, then we're going to see that a wall will cause a chumrah. Because if there was no this wall that we're establishing, as if there's a wall there between the Ketana and the Gedola, if it wasn't for that, Marchik Arba Amis V'Zoreya, you'd be able to just mark off 4 Amis and then plant. Here, you can't plant anywhere. Bilo Hashla Asur everywhere. So it comes out that a Mechitza makes a chumrah. What do you mean? We see many examples where establishing something halachically as a mechitza will lead to an isser. Vatnan. Chotzer gedola shenifritza lektana. They have a big chotzer that opens up into a ktana. We said gedola muteres uktana asura. You can carry in the gedola but not the ktana because the ktana meishikapischa shel gedola. The Ketana becomes like an opening for the Gedola. However, ilu hishvaz gud kifufeha, if you, Rashi says, Shabana mechitzas pesach Gedol mikanu mikan, you extend walls from the Gedola into the Ketana ad shiktzrele kamidas aktana v'sila because like you put adem mechitzas alalu agdola asur. Now they're both sort of asking each other. After shteyan shavois nimtzu mechitzas alalu bas liser. So those walls that you added to make it similar between the two will also create an issue. Amrlay, that's not building a wall. That's siluk mechitzasu. Achronas silkus arishonis. The walls that you build sort of makes the other walls invisible. But the case we brought by the roof of the chutzner in the previous Mishnah, adding the walls actually led to an isser. So, and you don't find other cases where adding mechitza leads to itmar. I'll show you another case. The ha'itmar. And we'll learn this tomorrow. So, Mirz Hashem, tonight, we will learn at 8 o'clock Navi. We don't have to learn Daf tonight because we did the Daf this morning.
Oh, yeah.